We're picking up on rituals for virtual meetings to build a little bit more engagement and strengthen relationships. And in this virtual environment, that's proven to be quite a tough challenge. So today, what I'd like to do is talk to you about a couple of rituals that are for ending the meetings. Now, one is about sharing an aha moment. Now, it's called a party aha because the idea is that everybody is going to be asked to share what they got out of the meeting that is particularly noteworthy. And this is going to take some time, so you want to make sure that you planned for it in the agenda. It should take about 15 seconds, no more, per person. Again, if it's a small group, 6 or under. Some people say 10 or under, but I don't know. I prefer to keep it 6 and under. You can definitely do it verbally, but if it's a larger group, I really advise the chat. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't capture the aha moments during the course of the meeting. If anybody has a particular good idea, it should go into the minutes anyway, but so should the parting ahas. So at the end of the meeting, remember, you have to have set aside time in the agenda for this. Okay, this is not something that is optional. It's part of the overall meeting. Give people some instructions very lightly. Let them know, look, as we're closing out this meeting, I'd really like to ask every single one of you to please think about what you're taking away from this meeting. When you walk away, what new perspective or thought process did you gain from this? And be ready to share with the group. And then, as I said, if it's a small group, call on each person to share it. Now, I've taken a leaf from one of their earlier rituals, and I try to limit it to 10 words. I know, that's a very small amount of words, but it takes a great deal of thought to be able to express yourself that cleanly and succinctly. And it means that you have a much greater level of clarity. And I'm a big fan of that. Now, if somebody doesn't quite have it yet, they can take a pass until you've run through everybody else. But the point of this is for it to be a shared experience. So again, parting ahas. The other one that I'm particularly fond of is called a public display of gratitude. Now, this is probably a little bit longer. Now, it's done near the end, but might not be the actual end. And it's particularly helpful if you do this not at the end of every meeting, but when you've had a particular milestone or a particular deliverable or survived a particularly heinous period of time. Not that any of us have ever had to do that. Okay. And ask people to think about who they would like to make sure to thank and why. Now, as possible, you probably want to have a chat with each and every person prior to the meeting itself, because as possible, the best outcome is when every single person in the team receives thanks at least once. That makes it a little tougher, doesn't it? Well, the idea is that it's not always about something technical or to do with the deliverable. It can also be thanking someone for a moment of kindness, of understanding, or sharing a joke. One of my favorite public displays of gratitude was when a team member of mine said, I would really like to thank Brandon for a twinkle. And I remember there was this silence in the Zoom room because you have to understand my my guy Brandon, not the most twinkly of people. But at one point, they were in a brainstorming session, and Jason was having problems and having problems, and it seemed like his mouth and his brain had managed to disconnect. I know that feeling, and I also know that it can be one of those things that feels enormously panicky. And Brandon reached over and just looked at Jason. He said, Jason, your brain's running so fast. Your mouth is trying hard to keep up. And then he kind of twinkled. There was a twinkle in Brandon's eye. Who knew? And he said, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea if you just took a breath. Now, this does a couple of things. One, Brandon got rewarded for a kindness that he never thought was even worthy of mention. Two, Jason got the opportunity to call out the fact that Brandon was perfectly capable of twinkling. Thank you very much. And the rest of the team learned a little something about habits of characterizations. So I'm particularly glad about that. Now, in some small teams, they also might want to call out somebody who's not in the room. And I get that. I totally understand that. If that's the case, make sure to make a note of it. Maybe send a text or an email to the person who was thanked and let them know. But because you've spoken to everybody just for a few minutes ahead of the public display of gratitude, you might even invite them to join you. These two rituals, I think, are important because they also help to establish a little bit of closure for the meeting that people are in. It'll help the next meeting that they're going to because they will have already started the active part of leaving this meeting to be able to go to the next one and be a lot more productive a participant. It's a little bit of kindness that you can offer the next meeting facilitator, the next project leader. I'm Kimi Ozenc, and like all of these videos from the Rituals for Virtual Meetings, these are brought to you by the Leadership Driven Project Management Academy group on Facebook. Join us, won't you? Thanks for joining us for these lessons.